I want to welcome you on this, in many ways, what to me always feels like a strange day. This day that's torn between pain and hope. It's a strange day. I want to welcome you, those who don't know me. My name's Andrew, and I'm part of the team here at Croydon Hills Baptist. And thank you for joining us on this Friday, this day that somehow we call Good Friday. Why would it be called Good Friday as well? I was thinking as Leah, literally as she was inviting us just to reflect, and she prayed to consider a king that came to give his life. And I'm thinking, what sort of king is that? And it's a strange day in some ways. So different, isn't it, than what we might expect or what we might consider to be normal. This has nothing to do with the talk, actually. It was just something that was coming through my head, and I felt the need to say to you. Because to start today, I actually have a kind of a very simple question. Now, if I had the sense that you were all going to jump out of your chairs and go with me, I would do like this as a physical survey. I would do a physical survey. Who suggests they're about to jump out of their chair and move if I ask you a question? I'm glad I got one person. That's probably one more than I expected. So I'm glad, young man, and you too, Hope. I'm glad. Thank you so much. God is moving in their lives, not in anybody else's. Here's my question for you. Think about whether you would be on my right or on my left. How are you feeling about 2021? How are you feeling about 2000? Which group do you fit in this particular case? Ready? Which group? If you're on this side, as in not physically now, think about if you're there. Are you happy to continue with the way things are in 2021? It's kind of like this, I don't want to risk a descent into something worse. Like we're proceeding along with life at the moment. It's kind of cautious. It's exciting. The last few weeks we've kind of had the mask not on, but we're still kind of limited numbers in buildings. We're still recording people's names and details and all that sort of stuff. All those I'm just kind of happy with the way things are going. Let's not rock the boat. Let's not change things too radically. If we rock the boat, someone might fall overboard. Let's just kind of tiptoe along in that same trajectory. Is that you? Or maybe you belong on this side of the room. You're kind of like, Andrew, look, we've been going too slow. I want us to move. I want us to move forward, increase the pace. Let's put the foot on the accelerator. We're moving towards this new bright horizon. I want to put that past behind me. This past year has been incredibly difficult for so many people. Bushfires, floods, political divisions, social issues have bubbled to the ground, and to the racism, misogyny, this violence against women. All these issues are just kind of, and I haven't even got to the pandemic. I want us to move forward. I want us to, we can take these brave new steps into this new world. Where do you fit on those sides? Just take things slow. Take them careful, steady, slow and steady wins the race. No rabbiting ahead. Or do you want to push forward? I suppose when you answer that question, it probably depends a little bit on what type of person you are, whether you're a kind of glass is half full or glass is half empty. You probably know what I mean when I talk about half full and half empty. I mean, if you're an optimist, you see the green shoots in the ravage of the bushfire. If you're a pessimist, all you can see is the burnt out forest and smoke and the sense that nothing could ever grow here again. Maybe some of you like to think you're in the middle. You're kind of like a pragmatic realist. You ask, well, how can we learn from this bushfire to minimise the risk of this happening again? Maybe that's where you fit. I think that when we look at this past year, nearly all of us have moved into I want things to get better. I hope things can get better camp. But we know, don't we, that the reality is often quite different from that, doesn't it? I mean, the world seems to be in a constant state of destruction. It seems to be on some downward trajectory. I mean, if I was an accountant, I would say something like, everything is depreciating. Nothing seems to be improving. I mean, you think about it this way. When we buy something, it's never quite as good once we take the wrapper off. Now, you know, the new car smell, it's gone after a day, isn't it? It's replaced with old kid smell. The newborn baby, that skin will never be quite as smooth again as the day that baby is born. And then eventually, you know, the skin is kind of looking like the Himalayas. You know, but we aspire still. Somehow in the midst of this, we still aspire for something better. But we know still in our heart, even in spite of that aspiration, that our glass feels not half full at times, but in fact overflowing just with despair. The nation of Israel knew what despair felt like. For a couple of centuries between the mid-7th and the mid-8th and the 6th century, they found themselves in an incredibly dark place. They had been exiled from home. What that means is they had been ripped away from their own local environment, the place that they were familiar with, against their will. They were subjected to different cultural practices, removed from all that was familiar, the things that they knew and trusted, and they longed for a return to something was better. And so in this time we read like Psalm 137, which says that beside the rivers of Babylon, that's where these people had been taken against their will by the Babylonian Empire. It says, we sat down and we wept. We wept as we thought of Jerusalem. It was this longing for this homeland, but their lives seemed to be full of despair and no hope. Do you know that feeling? Do you know that feeling that you long for something better? Maybe it's not for that same cause. You haven't been taken into slavery against your will, but you long for a sense of, can things improve in life? I want to release. I want to see sunshine rather than just the storm clouds. The events of Easter must have had that same sense of despair. And Jesus, the one who had brought radical change and hope to the lives of so many people. Radical change and hope. He had invited the outsider, the people who were rejected by their peers, rejected by their community. He'd invited them in. He'd taken the broken people, the people whose lives were broken, physically broken, the lepers, the paralyzed, the blind, and he'd healed them. He'd taken those who were full of guilt and shame and given them forgiveness, restored their souls. And we read about, as Adam and Gwen shared at the start, how the closest followers of Jesus, in this moment where their sense of hope for all that was about the future with Jesus is snatched away from them, as the mob, the religious leaders, kind of like some of the state leaders, grab him and arrest him and drag him off. They had hoped for so much, for new life, new victory. They had hoped for escape from the oppression of the Romans who had invaded their land and put them under their thumbs. Read again with me what it says. As Jesus said this, Judas, one of the 12 disciples, arrived with a crowd of men armed with swords and clubs. They'd been sent by the leading priests and elders of the people. And the traitor Judas had given them a prearranged signal. You will know which one to arrest when I greet him with a kiss. So Judas came straight to Jesus. Greetings, Rabbi, he exclaimed, gave him the kiss. Jesus said, my friend, go ahead, do what you've come for. The others grabbed Jesus and arrested him. Jesus was their light in the darkness. He was their hope for the future. And my daughter will testify, I spent time trying to practice my click. Still haven't got it. It's gone. Gone. So we read a few verses later. At that point, all the disciples deserted him and fled. Can you understand that? Can you understand what was going through them? Can you relate to it? To see your hope literally carried off in chains. So where do you place hope in dark times? When we look at the world in despair, when you feel like the glass is lucky, not if it's half full, but maybe if it's a quarter full at best. And today, on this Friday, ultimately I want to share with you one truth. That Friday contains a promise of hope. That Friday contains the sliver, the sense that you can see that there is hope coming. And strangely, it's found in the darkness of the nation of Israel that I referred to you earlier on. In the darkness of their despair and exile. You see, hundreds of years before the times of Jesus, the prophet Isaiah wrote this. He says, "This is what the Lord says, your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. For your sakes I will send an army against Babylon." This is a statement, a declaration of hope for them. Okay? "I will send an army against Babylon, forcing them to flee in those ships they're so proud of. It says, I'm the Lord, your Holy One, Israel's creator and king. I'm the Lord who opened a way through the waves, making a dry path through the sea. I called forth the mighty army of Egypt with all its chariots and horses. I drew them beneath the waves and they drowned, their lives snuffed out like a smouldering candlewick. But forget all that. It is nothing. It is nothing compared to what I am going to do. For I am about to do something new. And see, I have already begun. Do you not see it?" Hundreds of years before the time of Jesus, this is what the prophet declares, that God is about to do something new. He reminds the nation that in the past God has worked. That's always a good thing to know, isn't it? If you're banking on something for the future, it's good to know that something has worked in the past. It gives you confidence. He reminds them a part of their story about how God has been in the business of delivering and bringing hope, about how he'd intervened through the miraculous events of the Exodus and taken them out of slavery. And here again is this new promise, this promise to end this national enslavement. God has delivered in the past and he will deliver again. The past, it teaches and illustrates, but God always has greater things in store in the future. God is revealed in the past, but he's always more than just that past. The events of the Thursday and Friday for the disciples were the darkest of days, filled with betrayal, pain, and then death. And for us, you and I, we might know our own pains and trials, suffering and death. But what they become is they become like blindfolds, and we cannot see anything beyond them. Our pain, our struggles, our hurt, our shame, they blind us to what we can see and what we cannot see. And maybe you feel like that today. I am sure that the disciples felt like that. When the crowd of armed men came and arrested Jesus, I'm sure that they were blindfolded by fear and doubt. It's no wonder it records a few moments later that they deserted Jesus. And I think it's exactly the same way that so many of us feel like today. We hope for something more for life, some more love, some more meaning, some more hope, and yet it feels like just the pain of this world comes and takes over like soldiers arresting Jesus. And we watch our hope disappear in chains. And this is what the prophet Isaiah asks. He asks of the people, and I would ask the same thing of you today. Do you not see that God is doing some work? Do you not see? That's life, isn't it? We know that some activity is happening, but we doubt it because we cannot see it right in front of our eyes. You know, you plant a seed in the ground and you wonder, is it growing or is it dead? Just because we cannot see it physically does not mean that it's not alive and beginning to thrive. We start a new exercise regime, hoping to improve our physical well-being and fitness. We look at the step counter, the heart rate monitor, the scales, and wonder, is it working? Do you see? We look at our world filled with despair and wonder how God can be real. How can God bring some impact and change? Do you not see? Or maybe you look at your own life and you say to yourself, Andrew, no, I cannot see it. All I see is the shame and the guilt that's part of my life. I see the brokenness of my life, the broken bank account because I have no job, the body broken by illness, the heart broken by dysfunctional relationships. I can't see anything. I can't see. So why would I look to the events of Easter? Why would I even bother with it? I mean, by all logical thinking, it makes no sense. This Friday should be a day of mourning. I mean, it's the death of a leader, a social leader who waded into the lives of the mess of people, welcomed the insider and the outsider, rubbed shoulders with the rejected, the guilty, and brought about reconciliation. It's the death of a leader who was a healer, who bound up the wounds of the broken, who healed the leper and the paralytic. It's the death of a philosophical leader who taught memorable stories and shared wisdom. That's the bedrock of much of our society today. It's the death of a leader of hope, a Messiah, an anointed king, the one who is going to be the saviour of humanity. So why should I celebrate this? Why should I look at it in any way, shape or form? But here's why I invite you to look and see today. You see, without death, there cannot be resurrection. Without death, there cannot be resurrection. We cannot see a newness of life without seeing the darkness of death. Without the old going, we will not truly know the new. You see, the hope that we look for today is this, is that Friday gives way to Sunday. That Friday gives way to Sunday. In Isaiah 43 it says, "For I am about to do something new. See, I have already begun. Do you not see it? I will make a pathway through the wilderness. I will create rivers in the dry wasteland." It is Sunday that we can see. Can you see it? Can you see it? In the midst of your maybe shame, or in the midst of the brokenness or the pain, can you see it? Can you see that there is something new on the horizon? That there is a reason to hope? Can you see through the pain and death of Friday to the hope of Sunday? See, that's the eyes of faith. That's the eyes of faith. To know who Jesus is and to see what he does. Can you see it? See, Easter is the promise of a new Exodus. It's the promise of an end to slavery, not just physical slavery, but slavery to all the things that bind us, all the things that hold us. It's an end to the slavery of guilt. It's an end to the slavery of shame. Because in the death of Jesus, it provides the opportunity for the hope and the resurrection of new life. That's my invitation to you very simply today. That as we reflect on Jesus giving up his life, as we consider what was involved in the cost of that death, we know that's not the end of the story, because it opens to a new chapter of life and hope. It's the story for all of humanity, and it's the story for you and for me, if we can see it with the eyes of faith. Let's pray together, shall we? Our God, we mourn